So, Martyn, you've been writing about Verizon and Vodafone and the great non-appearance of any dividend from Verizon.
Well, we have. It's been going on a long time, this. It's very interesting stuff. Vodafone, during its expansionary phase, bought 45% of Verizon Wireless in the States, and it sat there holding it. Very nice holding, thank you very much. Verizon's becoming more and more powerful and popular, and Verizon Wireless hasn't paid Vodafone a brass farthing or a red cent in dividend since the day the agreement was drawn together. And Vodafone keeps saying, oh, come on, pay us, and they're saying, no, we're investing in infrastructure constantly. And the last thing we heard was that they might start to pay a dividend in 2012, but even now that little tickler has been withdrawn and they're not going to pay anything, and people are asking why not. Investors say, hang on, we've spent all this money investing in this, we put billions into it, how come we don't get any money back from it? And Vodafone is saying, well, it's really difficult because they won't let us. And who knows what's going on. It's the suspicions that most of this money isn't being spent on infrastructure. In fact, it's just being held, and Verizon Wireless wants Vodafone out of the way and is determined to get it one way or another by forcing a sale, and that's what seems to be happening.
So the idea is that if they don't pay any dividend, it'll kind of force Vodafone's hand and they'll have to sell it below market price?
Well, that's whether it be below market price or not, I'm not so sure. But obviously the investors are now beginning to moan at Vodafone and say, look, you've got to do something about this. We want some return on our investment, which is absolutely why they invested in the first place. The only thing that we've seen today is that as a result of the agitation, Vodafone is selling 8% of its holding in a Polish mobile company, but that's not going to do much. So it's, you know, it's just a one-off.
So Vodafone needs the money?
Probably does. Or probably doesn't. Who knows? And as for you, Ian, back to net neutrality for you, one of your favourite subjects of all time.
I do keep banging on about it, don't I, Martyn? But it's AT&T again, reared its ugly head, and this time AT&T very hot and bothered about the probability that the FCC is going to regulate Title II, or a piece of Title II, which means for broadband, for internet access. And what it's saying basically is, look, we've spent loads and loads of money rolling out our big DSL triple play thing, which is called UVerse in the States. And now we're not going to do it until the threat of regulation disappears. We're going to stop our investment program. We're going to slow down. We're not going to do UVerse anymore.
So what is it, a kind of blackmail or shooting themselves in the foot?
Well, you know, it's carefully phrased. You know, I mean, the investment opportunity doesn't look so optimistic now, so we're probably not going to put shovels in the ground, I think, was what Stevenson said. But clearly, yeah, blackmail is another way of putting it, Martyn, thank you. But we shall see, you know, I don't think that's going to make a jot of difference. But again, it's an indication of the kind of concerted political effort that carriers are making around this threat of regulation, and it's quite disconcerting in many ways.
It's interesting, is it not, that you quite often hear people from different companies, different telcos, coming out precisely the same phraseology. They all meet somewhere with sort of big hoods on and around a big table and say, we'll say this week.
Well, you've got to suspect, like you say, I've noticed that too, the same phraseology keeps occurring. And you can't help thinking there's a bit of an orchestrated campaign. A few months back, of course, the heads of some of the big mobile telcos in Europe came out in a concerted way against neutrality, and, you know, you said the usual things about how awful it was going to be and so on. And their comments were so similar to each other that you have to start worrying. Now, the thing that sort of disconcerts me about this is that we don't hear so much from the other side of the fence, which is the IT industry. Because if you think about it, the IT industry is dependent upon ever-rising dollops of bandwidth going forward from now on. You know, a Moore's curve, as they call it, for its continued health, especially with cloud computing. It relies on that. So it's quite crucial, I think, that some form of neutrality is instigated. Otherwise, all of that growth is going to not happen. So, Martyn, one of our favourite areas, of course, is Australia, where they do like to have a nice argument. I think peace has broken out between Telstra and the Australian government now.
Well, it's interesting. To this very day, Australia's changed Prime Ministers. That nice Mr Rudd has been given the bum's rush. And we've now got Julia Gillard, who sounds as though she's just been dragged off the main street in Kalgoorlie, but was actually born down in Barry in South Wales. But she doesn't sound like that. The point is, of course, that Telstra and the Australian government have been at one another's throats over the past several years over this business of their national broadband network, who's paying for it, why it's being done, what the Australian government wants out of it. And under Sol Trujillo, they were really ripping at each other's throats. He's gone. Things are now settling down a bit. Rudd's gone as well, who was an abrasive character. And it looks as though things might settle down between them. What they're basically saying is that they will spend the equivalent of 6.5 billion sorting out the old copper network and turning it to fibre. And then in a weird, convoluted sort of wholesale deal, basically the government will pay for all of Telstra's fixed line subscribers on a sort of national wholesale basis and finance it like that. It's a very, very odd, peculiar way to go about things, but it seems to have been enough for them to sort of settle down and come to some kind of agreement.
And what are the observers, our friends, the analysts and so on, saying about this?
They're saying it's about time things came to some sort of a pass. And that this seems to be the best deal that can be done. But of course, the main point about this is the deal itself is non-binding. So if anything goes wrong, either side can stop at any moment and they can just start backbiting and shouting at each other again. We don't know whether Mr. Conroy, the famous Stephen Conroy, who was also a Pom, he was born here up in East Anglia in Ely and transferred his allegiance over to Australia. We'll see if he stays as Minister of Comms. We'll find out.
It's all our fault, in other words.
It almost certainly always is, isn't it? And I'm pleased to say that we have our youngest cogitator yet today. Our very own Leila Makki is going to tell everybody what makes her mad.
You know what makes me really mad? The fact that Apple says that the iPhone 4 in white is going to be delayed for a couple weeks. So mid-July we're expecting it to ship. Do you want to know why? Their excuse that the iPhone 4 in white has proved to be more difficult to manufacture than previously thought. I mean, you guys are the ones that have come out with magical devices, things like Retina display, an A4 chip that's a really fast processor. So why don't you just say the truth? Why didn't you actually say that it's really for marketing reasons? You want the whole hype to prolong maybe a couple extra weeks. People can finally get their hands on the white one. Then you'll have queues again and people all excited. And you know it's mainly the females that are interested in the white ones. That makes me mad.
Well, there you are. That's what young blood does for you. My old blood, I can hear Matron coming down the corridor now with my monkey gland extract injection, so I'm looking forward to it. Be leaping around like a spring gazelle soon. So will you.